Good evening. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is 5:30 p.m. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. This meeting is officially open with a quorum present. Before we have our pledge this evening, we would like everyone to please stand for a moment of silence in remembrance and honor of Nicholas Delgadillo, a junior at Pasco High School, who tragically passed away on last Tuesday. The board and staff members are here this evening wearing purple in support of the entire Pasco community and Delgadillo family to honor Nicholas. Thank you. Begin with our pledge. Sorry.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now please join me for the Texas Pledge of Allegiance.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Stay up here. Stay up here. Good evening. My name is Carolyn Roberts, and I'm the principal at Luella Merritt Elementary, and we are so excited to be here with you today. So thank you for inviting us. We're not sure which way to face, so we're going to face this way. I'm joined today by some of my fabulous students who make up our campus safety patrol. So if you're on our safety patrol, give everybody a wave. And they are the leaders and role models at our school who open car doors in the morning and welcome students. They also greet our visitors and do a wonderful job helping us to stay safe and make everybody feel welcome at our school. And their teacher leader is Mr. Richard Starr, and he's here with us this evening as well. And the other students who are with me tonight are members of our news crew. Our students produce a daily news show for our campus. It's our version of announcements, and they do a wonderful job, and we wanted to honor them tonight. So if you're on news crew, wave your hand around. And the vision and heavy lifting for that is done by my PE teacher, Miss Andrea Sandoval. And so she does a wonderful job with them. And my students are also joined by their fabulous families tonight. We had a lot of our families come out, so I'm excited to see them in the audience. If you can wave, and we'll give you a round of applause, too. And our assistant principal, Miss Laura Guzman, is here with us. And members of our PTA board. We have a wonderful, hardworking PTA board that support our students and our campus, so we're excited to have them with us tonight as well. Thank you for having us, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Thank you, students. We appreciate you being here to lead us in the pledges. The remainder of our introductions will be done by Mr. Clint Bond from our Communications Department.
Thank you, President Ramos. Our student greeters this evening are from the Naval JROTC unit at Arlington Heights High School, where Sarah Weeks is the principal, and students will stand as I call their names and we'll applaud them all together. First is Fabio Camarena, Michael Fox, Raleigh Hernandez, Guillermo Ladios, Jack Peck, and they are under the command this evening of Marine Sergeant Major Frank Fialo. This evening, we are privileged to recognize two outstanding leader volunteers who have supported Carter Park Elementary for 20 years. Would Ruth and Buddy Calzada please stand? Ruth Calzada and her husband, Buddy, who is a chaplain and a police officer, lead an outreach program called Metro Ministries that travels to all areas of the city to bring resources and hope to families in need. They provide toys, clothing, food, or simply a little bit of joy amid challenging circumstances. They started in the street across from Carter Park Elementary, providing games, food, clothes, and music to the school's neighborhood. After a while, the school invited them to come inside and serve the whole school. They've been doing it for 20 years, every Monday after school from September 1 to June 1. In addition to the after-school program, on Thanksgiving, every parent that shows up receives groceries and a turkey. On Christmas, they provide every student in the after-school program with a bike, a giant stocking, and for the parents, a raffle for TVs and other big items. Furthermore, at the start of the school year, every student receives a backpack with school supplies. Ruth and Buddy provide to families of the Carter Park Elementary School much-needed resources, as well as a sense of validation, dignity, and hope. More importantly, families and students know they can count on them to be there for them week after week. As family and volunteer specialist Alma Poehler presents them with a certificate of appreciation, please join the Fort Worth ISD Board in thanking this exceptional couple and their Metro Ministries for helping our families, our students, and our Fort Worth community. And Ruth just wanted to introduce the members of her team who are with her.
Well, I'm a crier. You got me crying. We truly would continue to do this, whether anybody mentioned ever our name or not. It's really about the kids and the families. We're privileged to see second-generation kids now coming through our program. But there are some awesome people that I do need to shout out. Having done this for 20 plus years, 26 actually. I have two kids that literally from the time they were born in a backpack carrier were on my chest, or they grew up on our Metro stage. My son Dash and my daughter Gabby Grace. I want to give them a special shout out because they've been my sidekicks and I couldn't do it without them. And then my father, Papaw, Mr. Junior, whatever they call him, him and my mom have been our number one cheerleaders and our number one support. And even after he had knee surgery, he was still out there helping full time. And he comes out and does anything and everything that I ask and more. And so I just want to give him, I love you, Dad. I really appreciate all that you do. And then Lonzo is one of our volunteers that we have that no matter what I ask, he doesn't question it. He just does it with a servant's heart, and he's such a blessing. I don't say thank you enough, Lonzo, but I really appreciate all that you do for us. And my niece, Abby, who is my little sidekick, same thing. You know, she's like, I'll do any kind of grunt work you need me to do, Aunt Ruth. And so she's a huge blessing. We have more volunteers that come out every single week. The awesome staff at Carter Park supports, and they come out when they can. And it's just been a fun ride. And we wouldn't trade a second of it. And getting to make an impact in kids' lives and getting to do it with my partner in crime here has been the best ever. Not in crime, but you know what I'm saying. Write that down. So I just want to thank you again. Like I said, this is a blessing for us to be honored today. Whether we received anything for it ever, we would keep doing it because it's about the kids, and we really are grateful. Thank you so much.
Governor Greg Abbott has proclaimed October 9th, 2019 as Texas Education Human Capital Management Day. a day set aside to recognize and honor the important contributions made by school staff who work in Human Capital Management, or HCM. HCM staff work hard each day to make sure our schools are staffed with high-quality employees and that those employees have a positive work environment. Would all of our HCM staff who are here this evening please stand, and so we can thank you for your service. White Cane Safety Day is a national observance in the United States celebrated on October 15th of each year since 1964. The white cane, in addition to being a practical mobility tool, serves as a symbol of dignity, freedom, and independence for individuals who are blind or visually impaired. The mission of White Cane Day is to educate the world about blindness and how the blind and visually impaired can live and work independently while giving back to their communities. To celebrate the abilities and successes achieved by blind people in a sighted world, and to honor the many contributions being made by the blind and visually impaired. At this time, we would like to recognize Dorinda Kirby, who I understand is not here this evening. Is that correct? She is the Fort Worth ISD Regional Day School Assistant Director. But here this evening would be Audra Bishop and Kelly Nicholson, Fort Worth ISD Orientation and Mobility Specialists. Let's thank them for their service. Thank you, Mr. Ramos.
Thank you, Clint. This concludes the portion of our recognitions for this meeting. We will take a short recess break so that our guests may depart if they so choose. Okay, thank you for the small break. We will be moving on to agenda item number 4, reports and presentations of the 2013 Citizens Oversight Committee report. Dr. Scribner, I believe that's you and your team.
Yes, and this time I'd like to introduce our Chief of the Capital Improvement Program, Vicki Burris, who will take us through this presentation. She has some guests with her.
Thank you. President Ramos, Dr. Scribner, members of the board. This evening, we would like to recognize our 2013 Citizens Oversight Committee members for their many contributions to our 2013 Capital Improvement Program. These members were appointed by our board to represent our stakeholders and to ensure that the 2013 program had the appropriate oversight and was managed through the lens of fiscal responsibility. In simple terms, our members often said, our job is to make sure the voters get what they voted for on the bond. I would like to acknowledge our members that are in attendance this evening, and also I will call out the names of those people who couldn't be here this evening. And if you would, members, would you please stand while we call your name out? Tonight, present, we have our chairperson, Isaac Manning, Bert Williams, Bob Benda, Paul Johnson, Molly Hirey, and Stephen Poole. Not in attendance this evening. Oh, you snuck in on me. I'm sorry. We're glad she's here. Our vice chair, Tammy Coffin. Thank you. Our attendants, those, please. Our other members that are not able to be with us this evening, Rosalinda Martinez, Tim McKinney, Jonathan Morrison, Mike Schroeder, Jason Brown, Travis Palmer, Veronica Villegas, and Jennifer Frank. Please join me in giving these dedicated volunteers a round of applause for the time that they gave service to our district. On behalf of the district, I would like to extend a sincere thank you for all your collective efforts. When scope to budget became a challenge during an unstable construction climate, this committee came together and met monthly as opposed to quarterly to show support and serve as resources to us. This response was unprecedented in my experience. Our program benefited tremendously from the dedicated energies and time devoted by these 15 members. The Fort Worth ISD is very fortunate to have such thoughtful, energetic community members. Tonight, Molly Hirey will be sharing information on behalf of the 2013 COC membership in terms of a final report to the board on the 2013 CIP. Also with us tonight is our Chief Financial Officer, Elsie Shiro. Elsie's going to focus on the financial overview and provide some final remarks on the unused funds designation at the close of the 2013 Capital Improvement Program. Molly?
Thank you. So just as a reminder, our main purposes were to monitor the district's 2013 CIP program, advise the superintendent and all of you of any CIP issues, and use the guiding principles that we came up with to carry out those functions. The duties were to review the expenses of all the 2013 CIP, provide periodic reports to you, the board, to help work with the CIP staff to make sure everyone was satisfied with the work from everywhere, and also all of our stakeholder satisfaction. The 2013 bond priorities, just as a reminder, were safety and security, technology, and new classrooms. And now, Ms. Shiro.
Thank you, Mrs. Hirey. As you'll recall, the 2013 voter bond had 3 propositions. Proposition 1 was for construction and technology. Proposition 2 was for the construction of the VPA STEM Academy. And Proposition 3 was for the usage by our maintenance department for buses and white fleet and uniforms and instruments. And so I wanted to go over the first fund, which I will now consider the construction fund. And that did comprise of Propositions 1 and 2. And when you look at the original budget, it was right at $357.4 million. What we did early on, based Vicki had talked about the unstable construction climate at the time. We decided to transfer $2.5 million from the technology fund into construction because we needed to try to compromise for those escalating costs. And we also realized in the technology environment, costs usually went down. And so we transferred $2.5 million into the construction fund. That was board approved. In addition, we earned about $4.7 million in interest income. So the amended budget was right at $364.5 million. And as of September 30th of 2019, we have spent and or encumbered $346.7 million, leaving approximately $18 million left. Now, what you'll see there, that's been set aside for two purposes. We set aside some money for Tanglewood, and so we're going to do some deferred expansion and renovation of their current library and additional student restroom facilities. And in addition, on the 22nd of January, the board did approve the remainder of the 2013 construction CIP to go back to do the deferred maintenance to middle school restrooms. And we're looking now at approximately $15.6 million that will be remaining for that project. So next, on Proposition 2, it was for technology. And actually, there you go. It was Proposition 1 for technology. And the original budget was for $102.5 million. We did transfer the 2.5 into construction, and we had interest income of little under $3 million. So the amended budget was right at $103 million. We've spent $102.3 of that. And as of September 30th, we have $684,000. And that's going to be set aside for some Chromebooks, enhanced warranty support. You're going to be approving that this evening. And then we're also going to be purchasing needed whiteboard replacements, and you'll be seeing that in the next coming a few board meetings. And those purchases are squarely within what the voters intended in the 2013 bond. And then finally, Proposition 3 was for operations, and we had $30 million there. We earned $242.5 thousand in interest income. So the amended budget was $30 million to $242 million, and we spent almost all of that to date, and we've got approximately $72,000 left in that fund, and that is going to be set aside for pending White Fleet purchases, which will be coming to the board in the next coming months, and which squarely also falls within what the voters had intended. So I'll turn it back over to Vicki to tell us about our hub participation.
In this graph, you will see that combined with our prime and our sub-hubs, we have 40%. In the 2013 capital improvement program, a total of $322,655,077 was spent on construction. Of that amount, $131,323,727 was paid to hub vendors. That means the hub prime plus the hub subcontractors. So the 40% represents the prime hub and the subcontractor hubs, and so 40% of our money that we spent on construction went to historically underutilized businesses in this 2013 program.
We're excited to report that the closeout process for the 2013 CIP is complete. The Citizens Oversight Committee would like to thank all of the board for responding rapidly when we gave our initial report. All of your willingness to come together and resolve the issues very early on made for an efficient and successful use of all the funds. The COC came together when we realized there would be some additional funds and recommended using the remaining funds from Proposition 1 for deferred maintenance that had been removed from the original bond program. And we are excited to report, as Elsie said, on January 22nd, 2019, the board approved the remainder of those funds be used to renovate middle school restrooms. And I believe that is it, unless you have any additional questions for us.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
We do. We've got a couple. First, we have C.J. Evans.
Thank you all so much for this comprehensive overview. For the money that was voted back in January for middle school bathroom renovations, do we have a timeline for that?
We do. I don't have it right in front of me, but we have that slated to complete all the money that was designated by the end of this summer, ready for school to start.
Okay.
I wish I had the schedule. I've got a timeline for it.
All right.
Be glad to send it to everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good. Mr. Norman Robbins.
Thank you, President Ramos. I would like to thank the COC for all your hard work, especially at the very beginning of this process. We were in a horrible situation, and from my perspective, you all contributed greatly to helping us figure out how to not only get out of that situation, but to manage it in a way that the entire bond process was handled very well. And you were placed in that position for that particular reason, but you went way above and beyond, in my opinion, because of the situation that we were in. So we all thank you very, very much. It was a very long-term proposition for you all. I don't know that you expected to be here in 2019, so we appreciate your stick-to-itivity, and thank you for your expertise. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Looks like that's all the questions or the comments from the board. We want to thank you very, very much for this presentation. Moving on to number 5, Lone Star Governance. Dr. Scribner, I believe you and your team are going to talk to us about Goal 2, which involves middle grades math.
Yes, thank you very much, President Ramos. At this time, we will bring up members of the team to review with the board Goal 2 and the progress measures that support it, middle grades math. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our Chief Academic Officer, Mr. Jerry Moore.
President Ramos, members of the board, and Dr. Scribner, we come to you this evening to discuss Fort Worth ISD Lone Star Governance Goal 2, Middle Years Math, the percent of students meeting or exceeding standard on Algebra 1 end-of-course exam. As you will see once again from our academics graphic, tonight's presentation will focus on work of our curriculum and instruction team, but more specifically, we will be talking about work of our mathematics content department. While our presentation tonight is titled Goal 2, Middle Years Math, we intend to dig deeper into this goal and provide you with data on not only our overall goal of Algebra 1 performance, but also on the data on each of our goal progress measures. We have a number of data slides that we will go over with you tonight, and Mrs. Arispe will walk you through those this evening. As you requested at our last meeting, this evening's information will be disaggregated by student groups as well as by male and female information. Following our data slides, Shannon Hernandez, our Director of Mathematics, will share with you actions we have implemented this year to respond to the data, what the data tells us. And then following Mrs. Hernandez, Dr. Washington will share how our school leadership team is supporting middle years math instruction. And then I will conclude by coming back and sharing some priorities that we will be focusing on for the rest of this school year. I want to go ahead and turn it over to Sarah so she can get started.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. So, board, on our slide here, we're looking at our overall student outcome goal 2, which is, as Mr. Moore said, STAR Algebra 1 end of course results. We had a goal of increasing from 77% to 87% by 2019. You'll see that we had an initial good jump from the 77 to 83%, but we have been flat at 83% since 2017, 2018, and 2019. 83% is a nice, healthy percent passing, but we need to look at how we can take that to the new level and continue moving upward. Breaking that goal down by student groups, you'll see that all bar at the top is red. That's the 83 that we had in 2019. And then each of the student groups is below that: Hispanic, African American, white, economic disadvantaged, English learners, and special ed. You can see the performance of each of those groups there for those students, both male and female. The next slide breaks those out between male and female. And so on this slide, we have the same groups. The tan bar is female, and the blue or turquoise bar is male. One thing that you may notice here is that our data show the opposite of what we sometimes are led to expect, that girls might perform not as well in math and science, and in fact, girls are outperforming males in our Algebra 1 data. So it's an interesting finding as we broke that out between male and female. Under Goal 2, we have some goal progress measures. One of those is the percent of students in grades 6 through 8 performing on grade level on their STAR math test. So Algebra 1 is a course-specific test. We also have grade level STAR tests for 6th, 7th, and 8th. This is a combined data for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that we're looking at here at the meets grade level standard. You will see that we started with a goal going from 2016, 22% to 30% in 2019. We had some steady progress for 2016, 2017, and 2018, but in 2018 to 2019, again, we saw a flat, stayed at 27%. That 27% represents meets grade level, and I just want to remind you that our STAR data is reported at 3 different passing levels. Students pass the test at approaches, meets, or masters, and those are just different levels of performance within passing. So as we look at our next slide, this reflects all the students passing. So if you've got a paper copy in front of you, if you want to put your finger on it, that's what I would say to 4th graders when I was teaching. The 64% shows the number of students that passed the 6th grade test. So we're going to look by grade level now. So 64% of students passed. 22% of those students passed at the meets grade level, and then about 6% passed at the master's level. And that's how you read that stacks bar for each of those groups: Hispanic, African American, white, ED, EL, and our special ed kids. And that's 6th grade. So the overall goal progress measure is the combined, and we're just looking by grade level. Here's 6th grade broken down, same groups, but by male and female. So you'll see there that 65% of females passed, 63% of males. The next grade we'll look at is 7th grade. This is our most challenging grade level in middle grades math, and you'll hear Ms. Hernandez is going to talk to you about a really specific intervention and response that we have to those 7th grade data. Here we see that 45% of our 7th grade students passed mathematics, 12% of those at the meets level. This is the same data now broken out by male and female. And these are a lot of data slides, so I'm going quickly, but I'm happy to answer questions afterwards. This is grade 8. At grade 8, we see a higher percentage passing overall, with 78% of the students passing, 41% at the meets level, and then about 10% at masters. And you see each of the groups below that. And then the same data broken out by male and female. So that's Goal Progress Measure 1, 2.1. Here's Goal Progress Measure 2.2. In addition to a performance STAR or a passing STAR score, students also get a progress measure in reading and mathematics, and that's their progress from one year in math to the next year in math. You'll see that when we started our goals in 2016, we had about 50% of students making progress, and we had a nice gain up to 54%, held at 54% for 2018, and then we saw a decrease in the percent of students making progress from year to year in 2019. It's very important to us that all of our students, of course, make progress. And so in response to this, we are looking more closely at both our curriculum and our instruction and thinking about ways that we can individualize instruction for students so that every student makes progress. And Mr. Moore and Ms. Hernandez will both talk more about that. Now we're going to look at that goal broken out by grade level. So this is 6th grade percent met or exceeded progress, and you'll see that 30% of all 6th graders met or exceeded. Here's that broken out again by male, female, and for each student group. This is our 7th grade progress data, and then 7th grade male and female. 8th grade progress, and then 8th grade progress for male and female. As we move on to Goal Progress Measure 2.3, this is the percent of students in 3 through 9. So now we expanded from, we've just been looking at middle grades, now we're looking at 3rd grade through 9th grade. This is the percent of students making progress on our local assessments. So we have a program locally of interim assessments and benchmarks, and these are reflective of that. You'll notice that we exceeded this goal. We started at 37% of our students doing well on those and made a huge one-year gain to 46 in 2017, went up to 56% in 2018, and stayed there at 56%, which exceeded the goal by 2 points. You have all the grade levels, but instead of taking you through all those slides again for 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, you have those in your packet board. Again, happy to answer questions, but we're going to focus on 9th grade because our overall goal, too, is about Algebra 1 9th grade performance. And so just looking at 9th grade, you'll see that 57% of our students were making progress and meeting those key and enduring understandings in mathematics at grade 9, and then there's that breakdown again by male and female for the local assessments. I'm going to pass you back to Mr. Moore in our response to some of those data we just looked at.
So this evening, we would like to share with you our curricular response to the data that you just saw. Our curricular response does follow the same guiding principles that we used in all of the work that we're doing from academics. And those guiding principles are purposefully providing resources to our teachers that are simple, clear, and supportive, a level of support that our teachers need and deserve for all of their curriculum and instruction. For middle years math, our focus is on resource alignment and integration. When we talk about alignment and integration, we mean ensuring that teachers know what to teach, when to teach it, and that the resources needed to teach are easily accessible and understood. This approach started this summer as we look to realign our new Fort Worth ISD curriculum. This summer, we started that process by talking with teachers, followed by talking with our principals, and then going to work all summer long with our curriculum team to put together a product that was going to be at a different level of support for our teachers, a level that would ensure that teachers know what to teach and when to teach it. Our alignment also included our new universal screener, the NWEA MAP Growth Assessment. That assessment is also supported by MAP Skills, an online foundational lesson series that supports areas that students are either lacking in mathematical understanding or need additional support. A new piece that we are adding this year, that we have added this year, is called My Path. This is an automated process that takes student performance on the universal screener, the NWEA MAP Growth, and creates an individualized path of lessons that students work on to make sure that we are addressing the areas of developmental need that they have in their math skills. I would like to pass over to Ms. Hernandez so that she can go deeper into our resource alignment and our curriculum areas in mathematics.
So looking at the two big systems that are on there, the NWEA MAP Growth and the Edgenuity MyPath, those two systems will actually talk to one another. So instead of having separate systems within our district, these two will communicate. And so we've had the MAP Growth for about 3 years now. And so our teachers are getting comfortable with utilizing that data for instructional purposes and things, but there's a lot of information and a lot of resources in there. So Mr. Moore talked a little bit about the MAP Skills component of it. So it is a curated group of resources that teachers have that they can utilize to individualize learning for students. The problem with that is it is very time consuming when you have to do that and sift through all of that information. So the nice thing is that we can take these two systems and integrate the data within them, and the MyPath will then create personalized learning pathways for students. And so this will help the teachers in kind of saving that time and provide that support so that we can see greater growth in our students. The nice thing about this as well is that it's a continual process. So this is not a one-time thing. So we just completed our beginning of year assessment, and so that data will be integrated into the MyPath system. It'll generate that personalized pathway for students to work on between now and when we give the middle of year assessment. That data will be then put into the system, and it will recreate a pathway for students. So we're really speaking to where they are at those given times and really working on the student growth at that point. So it really kind of helps us monitor and adjust for the students as needed. So it's not a one-time thing, it's continual. So in addition to the alignment and the integration components that we did this year, we also provided teachers with math academies. We've talked a little bit about literacy academies before, so we've provided math academies for teachers this past year and this past summer. So we really worked with teachers on providing them with content deepening and other strategies and ways of teaching the mathematics, something that's different from what they have been traditionally been doing. So we did it through these strands, as well as connecting these strands together for the teachers so that they can see how they interconnect, so they're not seen as individualized pieces that mathematics does connect together. So by doing that, we really worked with teachers on modeling what they should do with their students in their classes. So we wanted to kind of move past of here giving them activities. We actually had them experience those activities with one another so that they could take those activities and then go into the classroom and work with the students on those. And they would bring back that data with the students, and then we would kind of talk about how it went and in ways that they might be able to kind of modify that moving forward. So this is an example of, these are called geoboards, and so this is just an example of one of the activities that we did with the teachers. So this is working on the properties and attributes of two-dimensional figures. Two-dimensional figures are squares, rectangles, triangles, those kinds of things, as well as three-dimensional figures, which are cubes and pyramids and things. So this was a partner activity that they did, and this is an activity that they went back and did with their students. So they, one partner has a picture, and they have to utilize the academic vocabulary in determining those characteristics, and then the other one has to build it on the geoboard. So that, teachers did that, and then they moved into the three-dimensional components of it. So students had to use that academic language as opposed to just calling it a square. They had to talk about why is it a square. And then they would then switch and do things like that. That also connects to future learning. So a geoboard looks very much like a graph, and so there's a component in the curriculum in which students also have to look at those figures on a graph and determine some things there. So we make connections amongst all the various strands that we talked about. So at our district days in August, we took that learning that we had with the teachers in terms of the content and strategies and really talked about, okay, so we've given these activities and things, and so now what can we do to kind of structure your classroom? So we did that through our instructional framework. And what we found with talking with teachers and doing observations and things, they were really struggling with how to provide effective instruction in a 45-minute class period. So we got together and kind of helped create a plan for them to be able to do that with their students. And so it's basically a 3-part plan. It talks about a class having a beginning, middle, and end. And so the beginning, or the engage component, is really about connecting to the prior learning and really establishing the purpose for the learning for that particular day. The middle component of this, or the explore component, is where the instruction happens. This is where students are sharing their learning with each other as well as their teacher. And the teachers are providing interventions and enrichments where necessary for students. And then finally, the third part of this is the summarize piece. And this is kind of one of the most forgotten pieces. The importance of this is really to reinforce the key concepts and review the learning goals of, did we learn what we said we were going to learn today? Okay. So, and then throughout this, teachers are utilizing formative assessment to kind of continually guide where they go in their instruction and kind of guide them to where I need to go the next day. So we provided teachers with a mechanism to give us feedback on those 2 district days. So as you can see from this slide, that was an overwhelming positive response from teachers based on that professional learning that they received. So I kind of want to go back to some of the curriculum pieces that Mr. Moore talked about redesigning. So I want to show you what our scope and sequence or curriculum map looked like previously. So last year, this is what teachers were given. You'll notice that it does have the unit title. It's got number of days and dates, but that's pretty much it. It has an overview of what this is all about and some rationale there, and then just a list of standards. So this is what our redesigned scope and sequence looks like. You'll notice that it looks very different. Again, I still have my unit title and I still have my number of days and dates on there. But the difference here is it's not just a list of standards, it's really those standards broken out into its component parts. It's really to help teachers to know what those component parts are, what their connection is to that standard or multiple standards, and it also provides them with the number of days so they can really see where the emphasis needs to be. And so this really kind of gives them that sequencing as well as how those concepts should be taught. We're also providing a continuum of support at multiple levels. So first, at the district level, we're working with campus and district leaders to really help them to be able to identify what an effective math classroom looks like, what should be happening in the mathematics class. We're also providing ongoing professional learning for teachers that is chunked into 6 weeks and really talking about what's coming up and how we can best instruct those concepts in various different ways, kind of connecting back to our math academies, always bringing that forward to that learning. So at the campus level, in our PLCs, we're working with our NWA partners who are working with individual campuses to provide some information and learning about our data for NWA map growth data, how best to utilize that data to inform their instruction and how to modify their instruction based on that. And so here, it's during PLC time, so we're not pulling teachers out of class to do this. So we're really trying to be intentional with when we do that so that we're protecting teachers' class time. And I think the thing that I am most excited about is the individual piece. So we know, as Sarah had said before, that 7th grade math is our lowest grade level. And so this year we are providing coaching for all 60 of our math teachers in 7th grade. And it's not just any coaching, it's through the math content. So it's not just a best practices, but it's also coaching those teachers through the mathematics and with those best practices as well. And Mr. Moore will talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Washington now.
So leadership support for secondary campuses fall into 3 categories: collaboration with curriculum and instruction or academics, coaching and feedback, and professional learning. Secondary leadership and CNI meet weekly to review district-wide trends observed in data and classroom walks. Our primary focus is on curriculum and alignment that drives initial instruction. However, when the data reveals that TEKS that students have not mastered, then an action plan is implemented. For instance, our recent data from interim assessments show that our students in 7th grade math continue to score below the other core contents. So school leadership and curriculum and instructions have plans to cluster schools to provide professional development and support for those teachers to improve practice and reteach. So these data also guide our coaching sessions that executive directors hold with principals when conducting campus visits. EDs have a tiered coaching support system and is committed to 80% of their time on DNF campuses. When visiting campuses, EDs monitor principal and assistant principal support for Tier 3 teachers, utilizing Banbrick's leadership levers and effective feedbacks. They also check for alignment of the frameworks and instructional delivery, and they ensure that PLCs review data trends and identify areas for reteach, review student work and identify misconcepts, develop lesson plans for small group instructional sessions, and then provide opportunities for peer practice for lesson plan delivery. They also work to follow up on principal, assistant principal, and instructional coaching and feedback provided by two Tier 3 teachers. They ensure that implementation of individual student support systems are prescriptive to students, such as the NWEA MAP process and screener and small group sessions. I will say that in our walks this week, we visited a campus and we got to see firsthand the NWEA screener in process. The teacher delivered a whole group session, and then the kids worked independently on their prescriptive sessions. And then the teacher went to each student and worked and looked at each one of the areas that they needed assistance in. They utilized the resources. They were able to pull small groups within those classrooms. So it was real-time support for those 7th grade students so that they were able to keep on track and then do prescriptive supports for them as individual students. So it was really great to see that that was in action, and that's something that we're doing differently and intentional this year. Mr. Moore?
So you've heard some of our purposeful actions we're taking this year to meet the needs of our students. We'd like to acknowledge that we are not where we need to be in our middle years math. We know that we must provide effective instruction for all of our middle years math students, but more specifically, we must provide effective instruction for our students of color. The way that we're going to do that is to get to the individualized level of instruction that we're sharing with you. We have a few additional steps that we would like to engage in this year that will support meeting the individual needs of our students. As this year progresses, we will be talking with you about a mathematics vision. We created a mathematics vision a few years ago that was aligned to our previous curriculum and our previous resources. That must be updated now for the level of support we're providing to teachers, for what we're expecting to provide for the individualized needs of our student learners, and communicate that out across this district. We will be bringing that back to this board in the very near future. We will be instituting a continuous improvement cycle for looking at mathematics instruction at our middle school level. Along with our school leadership partners, academics and school leadership will be visiting classrooms. We'll be looking at curriculum implementation in the classrooms. We'll be looking at instructional practices, and we'll be providing in-time feedback to our students, our teachers, and our administrators to make sure we have the academic results we need for this school year. At our last board presentation, we shared with you our engaged literacy strategy, a strategy we talked about in the literacy realm. But if you will remember, I shared with you we need to work with our teachers to understand that regardless of what content they teach, we are all teachers of literacy. This engaged literacy strategy is used in our math classrooms. This engaged literacy strategy provides the framework for all students to interact with text, word problems in mathematics, to be able to understand what is being asked, what type of skill they need to apply, and how they can answer appropriately questions at an understanding level. You heard Ms. Hernandez share with you a little about our targeted coaching approach, especially in our 7th grade area. We are doing something unique in 7th grade this year. I think you all have heard about our Engage to Learn work that we've done when we started with our facilities master plan process, developing a definition of what teaching and learning looks like in Fort Worth ISD. We've taken that work and we have pointed that work in one specific area, our lowest level of performance, which is 7th grade mathematics. Instead of going wide with our work, we are going deep this year. We are taking our coaching from Engage to Learn and we are saying focus on these 60 mathematics teachers. Focus on our lowest level of instruction and help us bring these teachers up to the level that all of our 7th grade students are achieving at the level that they need to be achieving at. We will continue to focus and provide feedback on that work, but we are experiencing great results right now, and we are expecting great student achievement in the area of 7th grade mathematics. And then the final thing I would like to point out to you is we're taking a play out of the playbook from early literacy. We know in our literacy, not just early, but all literacy classrooms, the best practice is small group guided reading. Well, small group guided math is actually a best practice in our math classrooms as well. We are starting with instructional practice and instructional learning opportunities for all of our math teachers to understand how to structure a classroom where we can be working with small group guided math. where we are looking at our students, not as a whole class, not as a whole campus, but actual individual students in our classrooms, and saying, how do we design instruction that meets the individual need of each of our students so that our students are on a trajectory that is going to ensure that they meet standard on our tests moving forward. We will continue to provide learning opportunities for our teachers in this area, and we'll continue to monitor that practice in our classroom and support our teachers to meet the needs of our individual students. That's the information we wanted to share with you this evening. We appreciate your time and would welcome any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you, Jerry. First up, we have Trustee Ashley Paz.
Thank you, and thank you for this presentation. The end of the nice things I have to say. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I want to start by asking a question. Was this sent to the board prior to today and I just missed it? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Then I really have something I need to harp on. This is a lot of data that we are expected to digest in a very short amount of time. And this right here is the one opportunity in this quarter that this board has to discuss these outcomes. It is, I think, impossible to expect for us to have a deliberate conversation about these results if we do not have this information prior to today. The standards that are set through Lone Star Governance is that the board receives all board information 2 weeks prior to the board meeting. So that way we have time to review, ask questions, digest, so that when we come in today, we can have a deliberate conversation about these outcomes. Our board has received 2 national awards for our governance work and our equity work. But when I look at these numbers, and just taking a shallow look at these numbers over the last few minutes, I have to ask how much, and here I am, I'm trying to internalize this work and looking at my responsibility as a board member and my ability to impact these outcomes. I'm asking myself, how are we truly engaging with that equity work and governance work if we are not asking these questions about how Black and brown children and English language learners and special education students are performing and the outcomes that they are receiving on these goals. And I'm trying to stay centered on my compass, and I'm keep going back into that feeling quadrant, and going to go back to acting now, and that's where asking these questions comes into play. So I've got a lot of frustration, clearly. And that's something I think that we can work on. And we just need to get back in the habit of having these conversations, and us as board members having boundaries and expectations for how these presentations are done. And I might be the only one who, if I'm the only one who wants to have these conversations, then I'll shut up. But I don't think I am, because I think everyone up here is committed to seeing these outcomes improve. But I think that, so going back to the actual data. Obviously, the scores aren't good. How many middle schools do we have that are rated D or F this year?
We have 10.
10 out of how many?
Out of 26.
Out of 26, okay. How many are rated A or B?
So it's 15.
15? Okay.
I'm sorry, A or B or C.
I asked A or B.
Let me look at that real quick.
Okay, because C is middle, and we're not, the STAR, this is the thing about the STAR test. The STAR test is the minimum. This is the minimum of what kids in Fort Worth ISD are supposed to know before they go to the next grade level. So a C that's just, they're the kids that are getting the minimum of the minimum. I want to know how many schools are mastering or who are approaching. So there's that. So I want to kind of talk about our actual goals, and this is something that I will take responsibility for, because I've, over the last 2 years, I haven't pushed this issue. But we adopted these goals in 2017. The numbers we're looking at are 15 to 19. You don't go back 2 years and start measuring goals. You have to, when you set a 3-year goal, you start from that point going forward. So 2017 is our baseline year. So it's great that we know what the numbers look like before that, but we really are only looking at 2 years worth of data here. The work that we are doing with Lone Star Governance requires us to look further out, 3 to 5 years, and that's based on that's an evidence-based practice. When boards, and not just school boards, but any kind of board, is looking at outcomes 3 to 5 years into the future, they're looking at the long-term success of the organization. 2 years is not, we can't end our goal here. We're going to have to, and that's something that our board needs. I think that's another conversation for another day. But when I go back and look at from 2017 to 2019, which is when we truly started doing this work with Lone Star Governance, the progress isn't that great. And it's, looking at it over 5 years, it looks good, but we started this, we said these are our goals in 2017, not in 2015. 2017 is when we need to look from. And that's all I'm sorry for being so negative. Give me once every 6 months. I promise that's what I'll do. But I'm here with you. We're going to work on this together. But I want to know, for us to have a true conversation about this, we need to know what the challenges are. And that's not something that I heard in this presentation. Okay. And I feel like as a district, everybody's talking about what the problem is, except for this board, or at least with each other, and in the public format that we have here, which is, this is how we build credibility. This is how our constituency knows that we're committed to their success just like they are. And now I really will stop. Thank you, and I'm sorry.
Okay. President Ramos, may I share something in regards to the work with equity?
Yes,
Trustee
ma'am.
Paz and the board, I would like for you all to know, just Friday afternoon, Dr. Washington, Mr. Moore, Dr. Benavides, and myself, and our partners from PEG, Pacific Educational Group, were working together through our CARE. Some of you have heard me say Collaborative Action Research for Equity, how we're going to focus on some of our schools and have some students that we're working with. And, of course, we have our priority campuses. So that is something that is in the work. So that's something we're doing differently than we've done in the past. It was across, not just equity. It was across.
Yeah, so when I say that, are we really doing the equity work? What I mean is, when we look at the outcomes, we're not seeing results for Black and brown kids. And that's what it all boils down to. We can do all of the great things and have all of the great actions and strategies and committees and policies in place, but none of it adds up to hill beans if we don't have the outcomes there to support it.
Understood.
So.
Okay. What kind of beans? Okay. Gotcha. Next, we have Trustee Andar.
Thank you, President Ramos. A couple questions. Actually, 3 questions. I would like to reiterate what Trustee Paz said regarding the data. I love data. Data is fascinating to me, but I cannot ingest this much data in this short of a time period. And I'd really like the opportunity to dive into it before we have these conversations, because clearly you put a lot of time and effort into compiling it, and it's data worth paying attention to. If I am understanding the data correctly, and I'm not sure that I am, and you may need to correct me, it appears when you look at page 21 on where it says we've made huge gains with our local assessments, that we are performing better on our local assessments than we are on the actual state assessments. So I'm wondering if our local assessments are accurately measuring and if they are rigorous enough for our students.
Sure. I will point one thing out. I appreciate the question. I will point out that what is unique about this goal progress measure is that we're actually looking at a wider range of students in this goal progress measure. We're looking at 3rd through 9th grade students here, as opposed to just our middle years math performance in the other goal progress measures that we're looking at.
Okay, thank you. That's an important piece of information.
Yeah, you bring in the elementary student performance as well. I do know that our local assessments, we are aligned to state standards and to the state assessment, but I'll look to Sarah to add anything else about local assessments that you'd like to add.
With this goal in particular in 3 through 9, we each year take our benchmarks and do those to the STAR test to see how far we are off, or are they actually indicative of how students will perform on STAR. And the correlation is very high there. Starting last year, we also took the interim assessments and started building those cumulatively so that we could do that. The individual interim assessments, or for example, the ones we just took, they were 5 to 8 questions. So it's really not fair to compare them. They're very short to STAR, but taking those over the year cumulatively is allowing us to start making some of those more meaningful comparisons. And we can certainly share that with the board if you're interested in it.
Okay, thank you. My second question regards page 25, where it talks about the resource alignment and integration. And we have the 3 different pieces, the Fort Worth curriculum, the NWEA MAP growth and MAP skills, and then the Edgenuity MyPath system, which all appear to be great. I have no issue with any of those. However, I really struggle to understand how all of these components can fit into a 45-minute class period.
Sure.
And why middle school, I mean, we're focusing on middle school math. And if you ask me personally, I think middle school should be 6 periods max. But that's me, and that's my opinion, and I have no data to support that.
Mm-hmm.
But that these are kids that's a lot for their brains to juggle.
Sure.
And when you reduce the class time to 45 minutes, and you're trying to fit all these things in there, and I love hearing, Dr. Washington, what you say about going into the classrooms and how I'm impressed with the MAP assessment. I think it's a good tool. There are some very successful school districts in Texas and all across the United States that use this as a tool, and they use it very effectively. And I love the idea of being able to address individual needs immediately and tailored programs for these kids, but how do you fit it all in to 45 minutes?
I think that's a question we're asking ourselves right now as well. One of the things that we know we wanted to do this year is take some of the burden off of our teachers, because we're asking our teachers to really focus on how are we preparing ourselves for that 45-minute class period, providing them the resources through our instructional framework and the guide to say, here's how we can be effective in a 45-minute block. The MyPath really does help teachers to be able to say, instead of a teacher looking at 150 students in their course load and creating this path of where students are weak, we're going to automatically generate that for them. Now we have to look at that 45 minutes and say, how do we ensure that instruction is still taking place, but we have an opportunity for intervention time built in for our students? I think as a team, we are looking at the secondary schedule this year and looking at if the 45-minute period is meeting our needs or if we need to reconsider that. So I agree.
I can't imagine how it's helping.
Yeah, and if I may, Trustee Dar and the team, you'll remember that our last board meeting a few weeks ago, when Jerry was appointed as our new Chief Academic Officer, we also approved the ERS contract, the efficiency study, to study our current schedule and make a recommendation for next schedule, because we do agree it requires a good deal of attention.
Okay. Thank you for reminding us of that. I appreciate that. The instructional framework is great. It's a fantastic theory, sometimes difficult in practicality. When you're sitting there with 22, 25, 35 warm bodies in front of you, it can be hard to implement. As it's a beautiful graphic, and it's a great idea, and I hope that in most cases it works this way.
Yeah.
But
Well, and that's where our coaching support is helping our teachers.
Good.
Having another body side by side with our teachers in the classroom to provide feedback, not from an evaluative perspective, but from an instructional implementation perspective, and so that teachers can bounce ideas off of. So we'll continue to support being effective within that 45-minute class period.
And I think it helps also in our PLCs that teachers will have an opportunity to actually practice the lesson before they deliver it. That gives them opportunity to run through so that they actually can time and pace the lesson delivery.
Okay. And my last question regards accelerated math, because I know that there are students all across the district at the middle school level and at the high school level, but beginning in the middle school level that are in accelerated math programs, which is great.
Right.
I think that is a crown jewel of what we're willing to do as a district to provide these programs, because many districts across Texas do not start accelerated math in 6th grade. Right. They start in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. And I know that affects our scores. And yet, and it can affect them negatively. And yet we still do that because we know that's what's best for kids, or those kids. How can you address how the accelerated math is affecting the scores and the numbers that we're seeing so that we can put that piece into the puzzle as well?
Yeah, I think Sarah or Shannon would be great at answering that. I will give you a little bit of perspective that I bring to the conversation. One of the things that we know when we look at our data is that student growth is a big piece of how we determine success of our students. When we talk about growth, it's where student achieved 1 year, and then did they make a full year's growth the following year. When we have students advance from an on-level course to an advanced course, it's very difficult for students to make a complete year of growth when they're taking an advanced class. So that's one of the areas that we're seeing some negatives to our accountability. It is the right decision for certain students, and we want to make sure that we provide those opportunities for students, but we're not going to end up getting the full story of a year's worth of growth when we're advancing to an advanced math class. Sarah, Shannon, anyone else like to add to that?
That's exactly right. I think if there's a place where it causes us a little concern, it's in the progress measure, so that falls under Domain 2 in the accountability system. Those students do perform very well on the test, so performance-wise, they are contributing heavily and do very, very well. And that's why they're in those accelerated classes. And so in performance, in Domain 1, we get all the credit and the points there on whatever test they take. So with your example of a 6th grader, if you've got a 6th grader in accelerated that are taking all of 6th and 7th, they may take the 7th grade test. Their results are reported in with 7th based on the test they took rather than their enrolled grade level. And so performance-wise, they're right in there with the 7th graders, and their scores are usually very good. Sometimes they do not meet that progress target because they are coming from a 5th grade test to a 7th grade test, which is a huge jump in the target.
Trustee Ana Luevanos.
Thank you, President Ramos. So, thank you for this presentation. Is there any way we can get an updated presentation on if the next steps are working out? I mean, I don't want to wait another year and then something is not working out, so we need to rearrange things.
Yes, sir, definitely. We are committed to not just doing one presentation on these goals and progress measures. We'll be coming back to you and updating you on our next steps in the implementation and what our interim, our beginning, middle, and end of year data is looking like as the year progresses.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Trustee Toby Jackson.
Thank you, President Ramos. I have a few questions, and I second and third the sentiments of the trustees. This is a lot of great information. Probably the best information is in the supplemental information. I, too, like data. This was a little tough. But thank you for putting it together. First, I think I heard that we're not going to silo math any longer, that it's going to be latticed. Did I hear that?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Maybe I did better than I thought. Second, STAR Algebra 1 EOC, 2016 to 17, we had a gain, and then we went flat. Did we diagnose that? Do we know why we went flat? And I can say that's page 4 from not the supplemental, but right here, this guy.
I think we can continue to look deeper into that. One of the areas that we are identifying from our conversations with our teachers is where did we lose the level of direction with what to teach. That was one of the reasons why we took a quick response in our curriculum by saying if teachers are asking for a level of information to understand exactly what concepts and how we align those concepts to what needs to be taught, how do we provide them that resource? So I would say that's one of the areas that we responded to what we saw with that, and not just in the overall goal, but some of our data not making the progress that we've seen in years past. Anything else that?
I would say, too, that by looking at that and redesigning our scope and sequence and looking at the data and being intentional in terms of the amount of time that needs to be spent on certain concepts and things that have predominantly been kind of the causes of why our scores are flat. So really making sure that we're spending more time on those, and then also looking at those in ways of teaching them from different perspectives, right? So instead of teaching them the same old way and getting the same old results, is really looking at it and saying, okay, so this is what we're getting. So what's a different way we can look at it and help our students to understand it?
Thank you. The next question piggybacks on Trustee Dar. 45 minutes for math, slide 29. Do we have anything that supports with data that 45 minutes for math is the way to go? And, with 17%, 23% passing rates, I just think that our superintendent and the team, maybe comes back to the board and tells us if this is the way we need to go, and we support it, if you all tell us that's the way to go. But if you could just deeply look into that, because I'm worried about it, and our kids get one shot.
So I was going to add that we also added a second math class for our 7th graders, so they are actually taking a 90 minutes, so they have 45, and then another 45. And we have a specific curriculum that is designed around that second block to strengthen math. We know that 7th grade is an area that needs intense focus.
We have a team right now that is starting the process of looking into instructional minutes, and we will be bringing back information of the research that we do on best practices for the amount of time to teach math.
Well, when do we expect that? How much time would it take?
This fall semester.
How much time will it take to find out how much time?
We'll be bringing you information this fall semester.
Okay, good. The next thing I heard, and I liked it, it was opportunity for review. For reteaching.
Yes.
But reteaching shouldn't be our expectation, man. Review should be our expectation. Pop it, get it, the next day review. And if reteach is our expectation, and if it's our expectation within professional learning, and I don't think it is, but
right.
Could you guys clarify that? Because that's what I heard.
I appreciate that very much. I will tell you the focus that Shannon has had with all of the work that she's doing with our teachers, what we've done from the academics division, is focusing on the initial teach. That the way that we make the greatest impact with our students is ensuring that daily instruction is as effective as possible, and that the most progress you're going to make is in that first teach where you're reaching all of your students at the level that they need to be reached. And so we are planning for intervention or reteach time, but we are focused on making sure that our initial instruction is most effective.
I think we're on the same page there. The next one in the supplemental packet, which again I love, pages 3 to 11 tell a pretty good story. I don't know if I can completely share it, but I think we talked about you're going to target certain teachers with certain scores in certain schools, I presume.
Yes.
But I bet if we took apart pages 3 to 11 and we looked at the fact that Anglos from grades beginning to the 7th grade went from 77 to 65%, yet Hispanics went from 55 to 39%. You look at a 10% decrease in the trend velocity versus with Hispanics 29% versus with African Americans a 50% trend velocity drop. And it's just too much. There's something wrong. We're missing something somehow. And I know you guys know that, but I would be replete my duty if I didn't mention it.
And if I may, the Trustee Jackson,
Please.
we absolutely knew last spring, and after, as Trustee Paz pointed out, we'd seen some steady growth and had a flat year. We took action, and last month, our last board meeting, in fact, replaced our chief academic officer and filled 2 positions that had gone the majority of last year vacant: our assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction and executive director for bilingual education. So all of these points are very, very well taken, and we're confident that the work that's been done this summer moving forward will result in a very different presentation 12 months from now.
Thank you. And I think my last point is we went from 6th grade 57% to 7th grade 38% all. And then the prior numbers I just discussed were the breakdown by race, ethnicity. So I guess the last thing I have is, and a couple of people have already just addressed it, next steps. But how are you going to assess this, and how are you going to be strong enough to pivot? Because if it's not working, we've got to pivot. And how are you going to report back to the board? It's been addressed that this is through Lone Star Governance, one time that you can report. I don't agree with that. I think that we can bring this back as often as need be to make sure we're all working together as a team of 10 and more.
I believe the pivot has already started. It started this summer with the curriculum. It started with the level of support we're providing to teachers. It started with aligning our instructional coaching initiative and providing a targeted coaching initiative to our lowest level of support. And it continues with side-by-side work with school leadership in the schools of being able to look at instructional practice and providing in-time feedback with corrective action steps on our end from academics and school leadership. So it's a continuous improvement cycle that we will continue to work on this year. And I think we really didn't have an effective progress monitoring tool in place previously. The ability to implement the NWA growth assessment is really going to give us interim data along with our interim assessments that we provide to bring back to this board and let you know the progress that we're making.
And can I just add, in our recent interim assessment, when we saw a campus that was really struggling, Mr. Moore worked with our team. They sat down, they planned what the specific TEKs that were needed to focus on. Then the content met with the PLC, the math PLC, specifically 7th grade. They designed the lesson and implemented, spiraled in actions and lesson sequences that would improve those areas that were identified. And then the next day, the instructional coach actually went out and watched them deliver that lesson. And then we did the same thing again in the PLC for the next day. So sometimes it's a heavy lift that we're doing side by side with content and executive directors, really honing in with those specific grade levels and campuses to help make sure we're moving the work together.
Well, you're calling it a heavy lift, but it sounds like to me you just pivoted really rapidly. Thank you all so much, and thanks for tolerating all the questions. Again, if we probably had this beforehand, I wouldn't have had as many.
Understand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Trustee Quentin Phillips.
Thank you, President Ramos. So we heard about the 45-minute class structure.
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Dar. I think that was well said. But that brought to light the two math courses. So all 7th grade students across our middle school campuses are taking 2 math courses per day?
We do have them in our schools that are identified in our DNF campuses. Some campuses, they have chosen they may not have that structure. It was specifically based on the data and the principal if they didn't feel that was needed at their campus. So not all 7th grade.
Okay, but it's available for those who were
Yes.
in need of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So you weren't alone, and I too agree. All right, so we'll get there on that. So the redesign of the standard, page 31, what was the redesign of the standard based upon?
The redesign of the standard, the redesign is really more for the curriculum. The standards are state standards. We're aligning to the state standards and making sure that we're providing a level of detail for teachers to make sure that instruction is matching the depth and complexity that they need to to address in their instruction. The realignment really comes into being able to take the concepts in each of the units and be able to say, it's not about 20 days and teacher go teach what you need to understand the one variable equations and inequalities concept. It's about taking that concept and saying, these are all of the components that make up this concept, and if you spend this many days on this concept and this many days on this, students will have an overall understanding. And all of that being mapped to our interim assessment, so that teachers see at the beginning of their instructional period, how are we going to assess success of our students, and how can I design my instruction back towards the level of information we have.
And, the conversation, last year's curriculum as compared to this year's curriculum, is the creation of a user-friendly, easily accessible curriculum, different from the more kind of theoretical framework that was provided last year. Can you talk a little bit about difference between last year and this year?
Sure can. I think the graphic really gave you a good example. So one of the things that we have in place this year from the beginning of the year is we put in place an instructional calendar which outlined everything that would be taught for the entire year. From day one of this school year, a teacher can see every concept, how much time they were going to spend on it, and what's going to be taught for the entire year. They also had a scope and sequence for the entire year, starting on day one, so they understood which state standards, which skills we would be focused on. We then went to the level of providing a unit guide being where all of the resources for actually how I could teach these concepts. In the past, the overall document was an overview document that said, here are the units that you teach. This is how many days it's going to teach. These are the state standards that are covered. Teachers, go design your instruction around these state standards. We just wanted to add an additional layer of support so that a teacher didn't have to go and spend their time on creating, what do I teach? They have that in front of them, and they can focus their time on preparing for their instruction so that daily instruction is more effective. So it just really goes about 2 layers deeper than the support that we had in place previously.
Sure, no, then that's helpful. And so I guess the redesign of it, that was a local change, or was that a state mandated change?
The state standard are the same.
Right.
It was something that we did this summer when we heard from our teachers and they said, we don't understand what we're supposed to be teaching. We don't understand what our curriculum is telling us. Can you give us a level of more detail that helps us plan our teaching? We listened to that, we responded, and created that internally.
That's excellent. I appreciate that. So would it be safe to assume that we're going to monitor if this actually is what the teachers are looking for, and if this met the need in which they were originally stating?
We have multiple feedback mechanisms in place, both in person and electronically, to get feedback from our teachers, and we will continue to monitor that throughout the year.
Perfect. I appreciate that. And then also, I'm grateful for this information. Along with the information that we have, can it be possible for us to receive this information separated by campus as well?
We can do that.
That'd be great. I would love to have that information. I don't want to point that Trustee Paz made to be glossed over. I do find it to be very important, and I know that in ways we probably are already doing this, but I would like for us to be more intensified in, if possible. I know that we talked about targeting teachers with more intensive coaching for those who are needing it, and that is absolutely a great step. Make sure that our teachers, who may not be performing as well as others, are getting the resources and the aid that they need. In addition to that, I would also like to see us target the students, intensified with those who may be struggling in these areas as well, because at the end of the day, that's our bottom line, is that we're trying to get our students up to the standard in which we know that they should be educated. I think that's something that we should be looking into as far as how we're going to do that. If there are too many students for us to be able to target, then we understand that we have too big of a problem. And then we have a whole different restructuring that we have to do. But given what we have, finding those ways to be able to target the students who are struggling in these areas and make sure they are getting the adequate resources and aid that they may need. So I thank Trustee Paz for pointing that out as far as letting us know what the challenges are, because it helps us as well when we know what challenges you were facing in order to get to that number and which was the goal. Because maybe there's additional ways that we can be helpful, whether it be the board, community, or any other supplementary people who may be involved with the district. Yes, so finally, and I'll go ahead and relinquish this time so we can move forward. I definitely want to thank you all for this report. I want to thank you, Jerry, for the words you said a minute ago, because President Ramos has pointed out, and we are trying to go in the direction of the accountability of owning where we are and what we are doing. I feel like you did a good job of doing it at the end of the presentation, pointing out that we are not where we are. And I know you just got in that seat, man, so congratulations and welcome. Right?
Thanks.
So accompanying that, the fact that we are being accountable and owning where we are, we all know this ain't it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all know this ain't it.
Yep.
You know, us as trustees, I know I'm speaking for my colleagues when I say we're out here promoting Fort Worth ISD and talking about what a great district we are, prompting our community members, our parents to stay within the district. And then it's hard when this is what's reported. When it gets to the brass tacks, it's hard to be able to make the case that we're going to be able to educate your child adequately. So we have to put the measures in place that's going to happen. That takes a collective effort. We'll do our aspect, but y'all are the experts. We are expecting those results.
I will echo Dr. Scribner's words that we are confident that what we bring to you in 12 months will be different than this report.
Deeply appreciate it.
Thank you. Final one, I guess, is Trustee Ashley Paz.
I'm back. So, God, I hate going after Q because he's always so eloquent. And I'm not. Okay, so this is just a point of clarification. And going back to Lone Star governance and our guidelines, which it's not perfect, but it's what we have to work with, and it's a common language. It actually prescribes that we monitor these goals and our goal progress measures and constraint progress measures once a quarter, not monitor one each quarter, but monitor each one at least once per quarter. So it does it does encourage us to be constantly looking at these. And kind of on that note, I do want to acknowledge that this report is, I mean, the information contained within it is more comprehensive than anything we've seen in a very, very long time. And I mean, 2 months ago, the report that we got a month ago didn't even have the goals listed in it, but it had Lone Star Governance over the title, so it was a Lone Star Governance report. We have come a long way in a very short amount of time, so I don't want y'all to walk away feeling like I've just crapped all over your party. So, but hopefully we can get to that point where we are monitoring these with fidelity and, you know, able to hold true to our commitment to the community with having accountability for these outcomes. So.
Thank you. So from my end, in full transparency, I'm going through LSG train to trainer, and I've been having to give pennies out to individuals whenever I violate my integrity and do it without making excuses for it. So Trustee Paz, thank you for reminding me. I take 100% responsibility that as the president of the board, I am to ensure that we get our material in a timely manner. So put that on me, and next agenda review, I'll ensure that that gets done to us. The second thing is to echo what they just said, that I want to thank you for, you know, having heard me a couple of board meetings ago, that the way that we're supposed to govern, we've got a framework and we've got a model in Lone Star Governance. And in full transparency, this whole board has not done that together since the last round of election, but I have all the faith in the world we'll have that done by December. Issue with that, and the reason I bring that up, is that until we go through that together, we don't all necessarily speak the same language right now. There's different vocabularies, there's different ways of conducting business if we don't all speak the same governance language. And it's in its infancy stages to some degree, but there's enough empirical evidence that suggests that board members, when we know what our roles are and we know what we're supposed to be doing, that we can actually work in collaboration and partnership with you. So the reason what I think, and when I hear Ashley, you know, saying that you're hoping that we're not beating up on you per se, but we are pushing towards a governing board that will hold its system accountable, beginning with ourselves. So the word acknowledgement that keeps coming up a lot is part of the vocabulary, that each one of us understand what role we're playing, if any, which is really a lot as sitting governing board members. So the alignment, the common language, the training that's coming, for the entire board to hear right now is that part of the excitement for me when we do go through Lone Star governance training together as a whole body is we will get to revisit these goals. And our newest colleagues on the board, you will have a chance to have some ownership in there. And then the staff's job is to work through the goal progress measures on how they're going to meet those goals. Then ideally also those goal progress measures become the way that campuses do business. Because if they meet those goals, goal progress measures for us, then that means that everything's working aligned and in sync. The other part I'm going to mention here publicly is that the board has not done a self-evaluation. And so we're going to have to do that. Once we conduct our governance training, we as a board have to assess ourselves. Where are we? How are we doing? And I'm going to speak for myself that I am not where I need to be. And so hence comes the report that you all are now providing a report at the request of the board, but that's on me. I won't say that's on the board. I'm going to say that's on me in the role that I sit in. So I can't thank you enough for that. And then all of that has to take place so that when we evaluate this gentleman here, he knows exactly where we're evaluating him on, right? So that there's no games being played and things of that nature that happens. And for all of that is to say, this is the healthiest dialogue I have been a part of in 6 years, completely focused on student achievement. And that is a new one for me. So my new colleagues new on the board, this is huge, right? And so seeing the silver lining in all of this work, excited that if we have intense dialogue, the dialogue is pushing towards student achievement. And we talked about conflict as a board. This is the healthy kind of conflict. If we get into that, that's the kind of conflict that we want to have, because we're going to ensure that this data gets better. Fair enough? Thank you, sir. All right, at that point, we're going to move on to public comment. Let me remind you that because of the restrictions by the Texas Open Meetings Act, board members may not engage in a verbal exchange about a subject that has not been posted. We will listen and take notes, but the board is prohibited from responding to any inquiries made during a board meeting on any topic not posted on the agenda. However, the board may reply with 1, a statement of specific factual information given in response to the inquiry, 2, recitation of existing policy in response to the inquiry, or 3, direct a person to visit with staff about the issue. While the board listens to concerns of a general nature and issues of common and individual concern, the board will not hear complaints about specific individual employees or public officers during the public comment session. Speakers shall refrain from mentioning names of individual employees or public officers during their comments. Any employee, parent, or other member of the public is asked to comply with the appropriate grievance policy to have a complaint heard pursuant to the applicable board policy. In accordance with Board Policy BED Local, speakers shall have a 3-minute time limit. You will hear Mr. Clint Bond or someone from the communications announce time if your time has been relinquished. And I ask that you please observe this rule. Furthermore, a speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another speaker. Delegations of 5 or more persons shall appoint one person to present their views before the board with the time not to exceed 5 minutes. First speaker for the night is Mr. Stephen Poole. And I'll prep the second person. That way you're ready to come up. Second speaker will be Daniel J. Bennett.
Good evening, Board, President Ramos, Dr. Scribner. On consent agenda 9L, there's a lot of policy revisions being proposed, and specifically I wanted to register strong objection to the proposed change to DGBA local that can be found on page 162 of your packet. Article 1, Section 27 of the Texas Constitution guarantees citizens the right to address grievances to the powers of the government. And your constitutional duty is spelled out in these grievance policies, and DGBA local being one. I've done this a while, and I may have filed a grievance once or twice over the last 20 years. It's important when employees file a grievance that they know that they're going to be heard and that it's going to be a fair process. Your policy spells out in great detail how the process works, so we all know what the rules of the games are. But on page 172 of your board packet, there's a proposal that says, and all throughout this policy, employees are admonished, if you have any documents, if you have any arguments, it better be in at level 1, because anything beyond level 1 will not be accepted. But on page 172, the proposed change says the appeal to you all, the school board, level 3, shall be limited to the issues and documents considered at level 2, except that if at the level 3 hearing in front of you all, the administration intends to rely on evidence not included in the level 2 record, the administration shall provide the employee notice of the nature of the evidence at least 3 days before the hearing. Just think of that. Employees, you're stuck at level 1. Level 3, the administration can provide additional information, and the only obligation is to provide the nature of the evidence. We've got emails we're going to share with the board, and that's all we're going to tell you 3 days in advance. Now, I know the superintendent wouldn't abuse this language, but as a governance structure, you have to look at 3, 5, 10, 15 years down the road to the next superintendent, hopefully 15 years down the road. I encourage you to remand this back to the staff so they can bring it back to you with better language here that is fair to everyone in the process when employees have to bring a grievance to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Daniel J. Bennett. Daniel will be followed by Gary Losada.
President Ramos, Dr. Scribner, and trustees. My name is Daniel Bennett. I am a citizen of White Settlement, Texas. Back in 2017, I also was a candidate for Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors. And I canvassed for votes by visiting each and every body to explain who I was and how I can serve as a person to the entities I was speaking to. It was a very difficult process, and I have found that it's somewhat antiquated. Colleyville, too, also had a candidate. Her name was Jen Shrewsbury. She, too, found the onerous provisions within the state code to be able to present to bodies time-consuming and antiquated. So Mayor Newton, in his wisdom, has proposed a resolution. The Texas Property Code allows for any body to suggest a way to cast ballots for the upcoming election. The election runs from October 30th to December 15th. His resolution states that we all should vote in the last week of the election. This gives the candidates time to come visit you. It gives you time to reach out to the candidates. Maybe send them a series of questions. If they don't respond, maybe you know what they're made of or how they plan to serve you. Eagle Mountain Saginaw did this to me. I thought it was a fantastic idea. Now, I'm not running this year. I'm here tonight. Ms. Coleman over here was very kind in her time when I spoke to her about this resolution. She said that she would get it to the right people. So I kind of wanted to also talk about it. The resolution was submitted to the chief appraiser on the 27th of September. By state law, he must submit it to all the taxing entities eligible to cast ballots for directors for an up or down vote. And for this resolution to become effective, I need 75% of eligible taxing units who can cast ballots. That's 48. Colleyville does not have a council meeting that week. They're going to have to call a special meeting. This resolution doesn't favor one entity over the other. It gives the candidates time and gives these bodies time to make the right choices. It's super important. Tonight, I do have a candidate here with me that fits that very criteria of someone who will serve the county and not one entity over the other. His name is Gary Losada. And I'm going to relinquish my time and hand the resolution to the secretary. And I approach the dais. What's not?
I'll let you know if you could just keep your comments to the process as opposed to advocating for
One. Oh, okay. Well, I'm hoping that you'll take this under consideration and vote your conscience and your heart for your citizens that sit behind me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Gary Losada. Gary will be followed by Precious.
I have several handouts. How do you want to approach that, Mr. President? How many do you need? 8? Is 8 enough? Okay. President Ramos, board members, Superintendent Scribner. My name is Gary Losada. I am here this evening to ask you to consider nominating me for the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors. Last Tuesday, October 1st, the City of Colleyville, by resolution, nominated me for the TAD Board. I met with Mayor Newton of the City of Colleyville prior to the council meeting and presented my resume and a copy of my testimony, which you are now receiving, before the council meeting took place. My testimony was in front of the Texas Senate Property Tax Reform Committee hearing, which was held in Arlington on April 27, 2016. I believe and I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I believe he was most impressed in what I had to say. My testimony came from 6 years on the Tarrant Appraisal Review Board. I served as panel chair for all 6 years and witnessed many issues as outlined in my testimony. I am not part of the good old boy system or the good old boy network. While I was attending Stanford University, I was taught how to think on my own. TAD's Board of Directors needs individuals on the board who know what is going on and can think on their own and introduce change. I am uniquely qualified to be considered for this position. Rather than bore you with a long list of self-serving comments, I will just give you a few and ask that you read my resume and my testimony. I have a master's degree from Stanford University in education and a bachelor's degree from the University of San Francisco. I have lived in Arlington, Texas for over 20 years, and I now reside in Southlake for the past 6 years. I have owned and operated 2 businesses, served on blue chip committees for Arlington ISD. I've held positions as assistant to the city manager and assistant to the superintendent of schools. I also have worked in the corporate world as director of human resources. I have much more to share with you, but I understand that we have time limits, and I would stop at this point. I don't know if you can ask questions at this point or not. I guess I turn that over to council, but okay, I can still make a comment, but not answer questions, right? No, I'm not. I already did that. It's clear. I only made this decision to run about 2 to 3 weeks ago when I found that one of the board members was not seeking re-election. So that's why the shortness of time, and I apologize for that, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, we have Precious. Precious will be followed by Karen Benitez.
President, members of the board, and superintendent, good evening. My name is Precious Alatunji, and I am a 12th grader student at South Hills High School. I'm here to speak on behalf of Fort Worth High's female students from a number of high schools, their parents, and supporters that want to see rugby included as a female varsity sport by next fall. Rugby is played worldwide. It's one of the fastest growing team sports in America, and the world with increase in female participation outpacing that of males. Rugby is great for girls. The culture of the sport promotes equality and has made great strides to remove gender disparities. Participation in rugby boosts self-esteem, making us realize how powerful and unique our bodies can be. The sport has a position for everyone, regardless of size, strength, height, speed, and agility. Opportunities to play rugby would enhance students' ability to behave in class, teaching each individual accountability, responsibility, teamwork, and also discipline. Furthermore, rugby can provide an outlet for rowdy females who are too often disciplined for not conforming to social norms. Male students, on the other hand, stare to football to redirect their energy and aggression. And compared to many other team sports, rugby is a very inexpensive sport since a limited amount of equipment is needed to play. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next, we have Karen Benitez. Karen will be followed by Leilani Lopez, or Leilani, sorry.
President, members of the board, and superintendent, good evening. My name is Karen Benitez, and I am a 12th grade student at Chimbo Technical High School. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Fort Worth ISD female students from a number of high schools, their parents, and supporters that would want to see rugby included as a female varsity sport by next fall. In the fall of 2007, rugby was introduced to high schools in Fort Worth ISD through the Fort Worth After School program. Despite considerable female students' participation in the sport, the district did nothing to acknowledge rugby's potential to address unmet athletic needs among female students. That was 12 years ago. In the fall of 2015, Principal Ramos asked the athletic department about making rugby a girls' varsity sport. He was told it was not possible. That was 4 years ago. In May of 2017, I and other determined female students sent the board and upper leadership a formal letter outlining the Title IX concerns and a proposal to add rugby. Despite being made aware of the Title IX issues, the school board approved the provision of stipends for head and assistant powerlifting coaches, a sport that has clearly benefited male athletes over females. On April 24, 2018, I stood here as a 10th grader to publicly state our Title IX concerns with the desire to see rugby added as a girls' varsity sport. Since our comments on the board, the district completed a financial analysis in 2018 on the cost of adding girls' rugby as a varsity sport. It then completed a high school sports interest survey in early 2019. It is our deep disappointment that the Fort Worth ISD leadership has dragged its feet to address its Title IX violations and chosen to dodge around adding girls' rugby. If we female students can self-organize at 5 schools to play rugby this fall as we have, the school board and executive leadership should have appropriately addressed our Title IX complaint within my 4 years of high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Leilani, and our final speaker will be Hung Lin.
President, members of the board, and superintendent, good evening. My name is Leilani Lopez, and I'm an 11th grade student at Northside High School. I'm here to speak on behalf of Fort Worth ISD female students from a number of high schools, their parents and supporters that want to see rugby included as a female sport by the next fall. While we appreciate the recent promise for improved access to athletic fields, it is unfortunate that it took our willingness to start practices on parking lots to get your attention. This action, however, does not discharge the district from meeting its Title IX obligations to provide fair sport opportunities that meet our athletic interests, as well provide appropriate resources and fair scheduling of practices and games. For 12 years, Fort Worth ISD leadership has been aware of female participation and interest in rugby as its high schools. We are tired of not having our interests supported in a timely and appropriate manner. We are not happy with the scraps we are getting because the school board has failed to address the finances and resources needed to expand female athletic opportunities. We are tired of and frustrated by the hurdles and barriers that hinder the development of female sport opportunities, whether it's rugby, lacrosse, badminton, or even flag football. Every new sport is going to create challenges and resources and challenges to establish sports. And while we may not have the immediate financial resources to obtain an attorney to move forward with legal action on our Title IX concerns, the board and upper leadership should not think we will not continue to accept another year of being put aside. We strongly request that as you vote tonight to approve 2020 to 2021 budget development calendar, you ensure the development of girls varsity rugby is planned for. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Hung Lin.
President, members of the board, and superintendent, good evening. My name is Hung Lin. I'm a 10th grade student at O.D. White High School. I'm here to speak on behalf of 4 ISD female students from a member of high schools, their parents, and supporters that want to see rugby included as a female varsity sport by next fall. Many girls at my school want to play rugby. Many say their families find it strange and they don't really understand why we want to play rugby. For us, it is a way to show that girls can be tough and tackle and deserve to be on the playing field, not just on the sidelines. We want to show everyone it's okay to think outside the box and it's okay to be unique. Rugby is a sport made for big and small girls alike. It's a sport that welcomes you regardless of gender, color, creed, or orientation. It's a sport that builds confidence and strength. Through it, we gain a family, and it gives girls like me hope that there's something out there for us that supports who we want to be. There aren't many sports for girls to get rough and prove themselves through full contact play where rules are the same for girls and boys. Rugby let us do that. Many of us don't have much support from our family or friends because they think it's wrong or make us seem unladylike. But if you give us a chance, we can prove that there's more to rugby than meets the eye. All we need is a chance. We're at a point in time where things are changing for women, and we want to be a part of that change. Our generation is making more life-changing decisions every day, and we want a chance to shape our own lives. We want to be able to be who we are without consistently being told no, because we're girls or we're not tough enough. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said, well-behaved women rarely make history. So let us make history. Make rugby a girls' varsity sport for the 2020 fall season. Thank you.
That was our final speaker. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts. Young people, thank you for coming and speaking your truth and advocating for your cause. We appreciate it. Okay. As board president, I'm making the following statement in accordance with board policy BBFA local. This is a reminder that all board members of the legal, to remind all board members of the legal conflict of interest requirements and disclosure requirements you may have for matters under consideration on the agenda for this meeting. If required by law, board members shall recuse themselves from all discussion and shall abstain from voting on any matter pertaining to such a disclosure. Is there anyone that needs to recuse themselves for this portion? We're good. So are there any questions concerning consent agenda items? Any of the board? Yes, CJ.
B 3 and 4 on those literacy level intervention materials.
B, 3, and 4?
Yes.
Okay.
So 2 questions. Oh, is it not on? Okay, there we go. When is it going to start or be implemented? That's the first question.
Sure, let me see. The work that we have in our campuses with the level literacy intervention program is already started in certain campuses.
Okay.
We are expanding that work.
Okay.
Pat Sutton in our Department for Response to Intervention and our multi-tiered support system is working with training. So as we get kits in, we will be expanding training to more campuses. Okay. And as soon as kits are in and training has happened, we'll be expanding into those campuses.
So if this is approved tonight, when will the kits be purchased?
As soon as possible.
Okay. Okay.
The PO would go in tomorrow. The level of literacy, intervention, typically, the last one that was approved back in May, within 2 weeks, we had materials. It was very quick. We currently have training scheduled for Saturday, this coming Saturday, where teachers can get flex training and or paid for coming, and then we have additional after-school trainings, and then even for next month, so that we are quickly ready to go to get everybody up and trained.
And then I noticed these are for Tier 2 and 3 schools. Is there an equivalent or something different for Tier 4 and 5? Or?
It's not just for Tier 2 and 3 schools. It's for Tier 2 and 3 instruction, which means these are materials that we use not in the whole group instruction, but for small group and individual students that need remediation.
I misunderstand that.
No, not a problem.
Thank you.
And actually, 21 of the schools in there are our Tier 4 and 5 schools. So we are definitely targeting those, and then other schools that are opting in.
On that same item, are these tools replacing, is this replacing another program, or is this in addition to program?
Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Actually, it's in addition to our Tier 1 instruction. So this is, at some schools are using it during kind of like an intervention times that they've carved out into their day, so that they can target those students in K1 and 2 to get them up to speed.
Ms. Dar, we've had the program for a number of years in a few campuses. We started with a grant several years back. We've seen positive results with our students that are struggling at the early learning levels. And so this is just the ability to expand and reach more campuses and students.
I think that's, and you addressed teacher training. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thanks.
Okay. Trustee Jackson?
I have a quick one. Is on page 29, approved purchase of literacy intervention materials. I love this. I appreciate the fact you're doing it. I just want to make sure, is everybody that's going to be held accountable for this, all the new hires, have they all bought in, or have they all had a vote to say that this is the way they wanted to go? And I'm sure they have. I just wanted to get it on the record.
Yeah, so these two materials go hand in hand. The level of literacy intervention kits that we have is the English version. The Soluciones is our Spanish version. And so everyone that is interested in using these materials, we're targeting campuses, and we're looking for campuses that are interested in implementing this as an intervention. And we'll be working with school leadership to make sure it's effective implementation as well.
So I guess my question is the new hires, the people that are coming in, the assistant So for for CNI and stuff.
Yes.
They're all.
These are materials that are very aligned to foundational reading skills. It's a great resource that is well respected in the curriculum area.
I figured it was a free flow, but I just wanted to ask another
No,
question.
not a problem. Yeah,
All right, thanks.
certainly.
Any other questions? Trustee Luevanos?
L, the reading that was mentioned on public comment, can we pull that one to further review?
Yes, the policy L, the item L, policy DGBA, this is our first reading, so we will be reviewing it and coming back for a second reading. We certainly can make those recommendations.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yes.
This is in reference to letter H, the approval of the application for the waiver to request for maximum class size. The proposal mentioned that we're facing, quote, challenges over the established 22-to-1 ratios. What is the source of these challenges? Is it a lack, we don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough full-time equivalency positions, we don't have space? What are the challenges that we're facing?
It depends by campus.
Yeah,
However,
that is kind of a hard question to answer on a
Ha-
district level. I understand that.
However, when we look at the overall, so for example, obviously the data changes as students come in and out, but just based on the data that I reviewed for October 1st, we're looking at 106 classrooms throughout the K-4 across the district. So of those 106, the majority, or probably even 75 to 80%, are only over by 1 or 2 students. But anytime we're over 22-to-1, we have to ask for the waiver.
Right.
So much of the data shows that we were very conscious when we did the leveling at spring and the leveling in the fall. The principals did an excellent job of really working toward having those rooms where we would only have 22, 23 students, preferably in the ratio. But of course, because students come in and out, they can go over at any time. So we look every month to see where those teachers' classrooms are. We do the waiver as required by the state, given the board's approval, and then we will continue to monitor that throughout the year and assist as necessary. And Dr. Pena works with the principals and the EDs to ensure that if a teacher has more than the 23 or 24, sometimes you'll see a teacher might have 25 or even up to 28, that's actually a conscious decision by the principal in communication with that particular teacher, because let's say they have a stronger teacher or more experienced teacher, depending on the team. I mean, it gets down to the team level, the school, the space, there are many, many, many different reasons.
So at what point do we then consider the possibility of hiring a compliance teacher? Like somebody to pull out kids or work with kids in order to help meet some individual needs that may not be met because the class sizes are so large?
So I'm not aware that we actually hire compliance teachers.
Oh, okay.
That's not a practice that we have.
Okay.
We do provide a stipend for those teachers, a monthly stipend for those teachers who have even just one student over the 22-to-1
That's
ratio.
good to know.
They get the stipend.
And for scale, we're talking the number of teachers we have K through 4 district-wide is around 2,000. So we have 5,600 total teacher positions, about 2,000 K through 4. So we're at 100 and what number?
How many classrooms are being?
How many classrooms?
106 was on
106,
October
right.
1. As of today, we were down to 102. So, like I said,
Fluid.
if it's fluid, and also we're only talking about 46 campuses, elementary campuses, over 106 over 46 campuses. So we like I said, we continue to monitor that monthly, especially because we are looking at the stipends that we provide the teachers.
No other questions from the board? Okay, this concludes our discussion of consent agenda items. Thank you.
have the Heart of America Technology Makeover, and it's sponsored by Cadillac. We received new computers, a new Chrome cart with 30 Chromebooks.
I think that is amazing because we get a new library.
New walls, 3D printer.
I saw the 3D printer, then I was wondering if the students will also be able to use it.
New books, and we're just very excited about this opportunity to enhance the kids' learning and lives.
The outcomes will far exceed the work we've done here today and serve generations to come.
Our shirts say Cadillac Cares. For us to be able to give back in any way we can in our local communities, just try to make a difference in a young person's life.
Well done. Thank you to all of you for joining us here at Carroll Peak Elementary. Today we celebrate the successful conclusion of Read Fort Worth's Classroom Library campaign and the fact that more than 130,000 books have been delivered to Fort Worth ISD campuses by Read Fort Worth and community volunteers. Catherine, what is the name of the book that you have today?
Rambo.
Catherine and her classmates will directly benefit from having these books in their classroom, as will every Fort Worth ISD student in every pre-kindergarten classroom through second grade across our city.
So which book is your favorite?
My friend is sad.
Which book do you like?
A Little Ducky with a Cookie.
I think for a community to succeed, you must have well-educated workforce.
You want to share with everybody what your favorite book is?
Three Billy Goats Grove.
Read Fort Worth is here to complement the dedicated and mission-driven elementary school teachers and leaders that work every day in our classrooms.
So tell me about your favorite book.
It's really funny.
These books will have a deep impact on our children and will have a ripple effect across the city for years to come.
What do you like about that book? Why is that a good book?
Because the last part is my favorite one.
The last part is your favorite one. Those books that end well are always good books. Don't you agree?
I'd like to welcome everybody here today as our first cohort of teachers that will be getting this drone education out into the hands of the students. Within our region here, we have over 100 school districts that are working to develop programs in conjunction with higher education and industry partners.
Part of what we teach in here, too, is that you understand the best practices that the FAA recognizes. North Texas Aero Robotics Program received a grant to provide training, to provide curriculum, to provide drones for these 10 schools. I've got a pre-flight checklist that you'll get as well. In addition to that, we're going to go through a lot of things that are important for teachers to know and understand as they're fielding drones to their classrooms.
We'll kind of get the kids outside the classroom really hands-on with different new tools that they can use for law enforcement and other things that we've got planned for it.
The FAA 107 program is a program where students can actually take their program in high school and test for the 107 remote pilot certificates.
These two motors will go slightly faster.
They can use these drones to survey their animals, and so I found that kind of interesting, and that's how I'm going to incorporate it into my classroom, just talking about how we're using it in agriculture today.
And then to make it go up, we just give it some throttle. If it loses signal for any reason, battery dies, something goes wrong with the drone, it loses the signal for any reason, it will go to 60 feet, and then it's going to turn around and fly back to where it took off from and land itself. Not everyone who's going to work on a drone, put one together, or fly one is going to end up working in the drone industry. But it's a great way to teach them about technologies embedded inside them that make them perform the way they perform.
Industry-driven Gold Seal programs and schools of choice offer Fort Worth ISD families and students the power of choice, now more than ever, to go beyond the basic, beyond the traditional, to find the pathway that's a match to a student's interest, goals, and learning style. And just look at the programs and schools to choose from. You've got goals and dreams for the future. We've got a high school experience to match.
There you go.
They can sign up.
Fort Worth ISD Gold Seal programs of choice are built for dreamers like you. The problem solvers, the curious minds, the creators
of art and idea. Gold Seal programs deliver expert guidance,
your checklist,
hands-on learning, certifications, college credits, and community partners who support your learning. A great example? Our P-Tech early college high schools that combine high school, college, and career.
So the idea is to grow.
Students can earn an associate degree.
Ready to go?
Visit job sites, build relationships, and develop workplace skills and knowledge. Our partners enrich every Gold Seal program, open doors to careers, and put you ahead of the herd. There's a Gold Seal pathway to fit your interests.
So let's give it a shot.
Whether it's making machines run better and fly higher,
Sales inside of it. Canadian place is better.
or improving health
Do you have any allergies?
and housing. Whether it's serving on the front lines,
Are y'all set? All right, we're ready.
or protecting citizens online.
Yeah, moving all the frames.
Bring your biggest dreams and determination here,
Really great product.
where you belong, in a Fort Worth ISD program of choice.
Take graphic.
Your choice. The atmosphere is electric at Fort Worth ISD Gold Seal Schools of Choice. These smaller, well-focused learning communities prepare students for college and careers in the most innovative ways.
This combines art and math.
Now we know what to do.
Every school day hums with activity and empowerment at Young Men's Leadership Academy and Young Women's Leadership Academy.
Come across one.
Future leaders are at work here, gaining knowledge, experiences, and character while developing lifelong strategies for success. Move toward your dreams at the IM Terrell Academy for STEM and VPA. On the STEM side, students design and problem solve in a high-tech makerspace. In VPA, students train in state-of-the-art studios and perform in a magnificent hall. The school's Cowan Academy in the Humanities elevates the study of literature, history, art, and philosophy. Imagine learning multiple languages, exploring global cultures, and taking academic courses in English and Spanish. The World Languages Institute is perfect for students from Spanish immersion and dual language programs, and anyone else eager to learn Spanish immersion style. Early college high schools merge high school, college, and career. Students go to school on Tarrant County College campuses and can earn an associate degree for free. Marine Creek Collegiate High School focuses on high academic achievement and skills for success.
Got a slightly movable
The Texas Academy of Biomedical Sciences is a hub of health science studies with hands-on laboratory learning supported by medical industry partners. TCC South Fort Worth ISD Collegiate High takes industry partnerships to a new level. It's the district's first P-Tech early college high school. Partners such as Encore and the Fort Worth Water Department help students build skills that industries want. Schools of choice are not just for older students. Collectively, 4 applied learning academies serve kindergarten through the 8th grade. Students apply their knowledge to solve real-life issues as they investigate the bigger world.
6 taken 2 times.
Our Montessori program guides kindergarten through 8th grade students in multi-age classrooms that are safe and respectful. Students work through lessons, interact with others, cultivate self-discipline, and take early ownership of their education. A great start to a lifetime of learning. One-size-fits-all education is so last century. Pick your cutting-edge Gold Seal pathway to college, career, and community leadership. Learn more at fwisd.org/choice or call 817-814-1540. North ISD is promoting college readiness in an even bigger way this year. We are competing in the FAFSA Race to Submit. Beginning October the 1st, every student who is planning to go to college or even thinking about going to college will want to be sure to fill out a FAFSA form. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It's the document that determines a student's eligibility for federal financial aid for college, which may include grants, scholarships, work-study, and loans. But it's not just about financial needs.
And those opportunities for you as a student are quite remarkable.
Completing the FAFSA should be top priority for every college-going student. You can't receive any college or university-sponsored scholarship money if you don't.
What they're going to do is take the best scores of each section.
And that's where the FAFSA Race to Submit comes in. The campuses with the highest percentage of increase in FAFSA completions will receive a recognition banner for their school. Your high school college coaches are available on your campus to help you complete the FAFSA. And we'll provide financial aid help sessions from October through May. Let the race to submit begin.
They don't know what CC is. It's like so much stuff that they don't even know. You have an answer.
Okay, in accordance with the open meetings law, the board opened the meeting at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom with a quorum present, recessed and reconvened open session in the board conference room, adjourned regular session, convened executive session, adjourned executive session, and now reconvened open session at 8:09 p.m. in the boardroom with a quorum present. We will move to accepting consent agenda. Do I have a motion accepting consent agenda? We have a motion by Trustee Jackson. We have a second by Trustee Robbins. Do we have any discussion on that? Looks like no discussion. Please move to vote. Motion passes 7-4 and 0 against. No items were removed from consent agenda on 14A, so we will move to 14B. Do I have a motion approving the superintendent's personnel recommendation as listed under executive session? A motion by Mr. Robbins and a second by Mr. Luevanos. Do we have any discussion? Looks like no discussion. Please move to vote. Motion passes 7-4 and 0 against. Dr. Scribner, do you have an intro you'd like to make?
Thank you very much, President Ramos. We appreciate your support of our recommendation. This time I'd like to turn it over to our Chief Academic Officer, Jerry Moore, to introduce the newest member of our team.
Thank you so much, President Ramos, members of the board, Dr. Scribner. We are very excited to welcome Erin Montgomery. Erin is not new to Fort Worth ISD. She has been coordinating our instructional coaching initiative through the Fort Worth Children's Partnership for the last couple of years. Erin brings to us great experience both as a teacher and a campus administrator, and bringing experience in the field with the model that we are aligning all of our instructional coaching efforts to here in Fort Worth ISD. So a great asset that's being added to the team, and look forward to great things from her. So thank you, Erin. Thank you.
Erin, do you have any guests with you you'd like to introduce? Awesome. Congratulations. Great. Welcome. So moving on to 15 action agenda items, A, B, and C will not be required tonight, so we move on to 15D. 15D is approve the ratification and approval of the Memorandum of Understanding between Education Service Center Region 11 and the Fort Worth ISD, which includes Como Montessori, Handley Middle, Harleen Beale Elementary, J.T. Stevens Elementary, Jean McClung Middle, Seminary Hills Park Elementary, Sunrise McMillan Elementary, West Creek Elementary, and Western Hills Elementary. It looks like I have a motion by Trustee Jackson and a second by Trustee Evans. Do we have any discussion on this agenda item? Looks like no discussion. Please move to vote. Motion passes 6-4 and 1 abstention. Moving on to 15E, approve the resolution nominating candidates for Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors. I have a motion. Mr. Robbins, what is your motion?
I move that we nominate John Molyneux as a candidate for the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Robbins. We have a second by Trustee Jackson. Do we have any discussion? Looks like no discussion. Please move to vote. Motion passes 7-4 and 0 against. 16, we have now gotten to the comments by board members and superintendent on current district activities and announcements. Do we have any from the board? First up, Trustee Toby Jackson.
Thank you, President Ramos. I just want to let everyone know who doesn't know and remind everyone that does on Friday at 5 a.m. We'd love to see each of you at Eastern Hills High School. And Dr. Washington, I know you know the way there. And Channel 11 will be there to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Eastern Hills High School. And I want to thank Dr. Washington, the superintendent, Art Cavazos, and any others that I forgot to mention their names, but I do love and appreciate you for getting the school ready to go. Thank you all so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you there Friday, 5 a.m. It all starts.
Awesome. I do have a note. I want to thank Fort Worth ISD, all the staff that put in a lot of time and energy into putting together an event to celebrate Dr. T.A. Sims' years of service. I want to thank the board that was able to attend, and those that are obviously were all supportive of that event. Can't thank you enough for what you did in hosting that. Trustee Jackson.
Thank you, President Ramos. I want to give a round of applause to our board president, who is also the president of the Council of Urban Boards of Education. He lit Miami up in a very good way, made us all proud. He is the first, and we always said this about T.A. Sims, the longest serving in an urban district in the state of Texas. Jacinto Ramos Jr. is the first president leading a national organization in education from Fort Worth ISD Board of Trustees. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate that.
May we give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
And he can play the tambourine, too.
Oh, yeah. Little Havana. There's evidence. Well, looks like that's all the comments for tonight. This meeting is adjourned.